Hi, everyone. My name is Heather. On behalf of Litquake, thank you all so much for coming to Lit Crawl San Francisco. Tonight is the closing night of Litquake, San Francisco's literary festival, and we're in the midst of a virtual Lit Crawl, which is running from 10:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. with 25 events and featuring 7 cities around the world. This nonprofit festival is nearly 100% free and could not exist without the generosity of our individual donors. If you believe in keeping literature a key component of San Francisco's cultural landscape, please consider dropping us a few dollars. Every bit helps. We accept donations on Venmo at Litquake, on PayPal at info@litquake.org, or directly at litquake.org. After the event, you'll be asked to fill out a short survey. These surveys are essential to our efforts to keep Lit Crawl free, so please fill it out. Now, let's get started with our event.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Lee with the Rumpus, and we welcome you to our SF Lit Crawl 2020 event, An Evening with the Rumpus. This year, we're all virtual, and we're, every setback is an opportunity, and we're happy to be more accessible than ever. For many years, readings with the Rumpus have been limited to room capacity, and now that we're online, there's an unlimited amount of people who can join us, and people from all over the United States can join us as well, so welcome. We're going to have readings tonight from Monica Sok, Ingrid Rojas Contreras, Tongo Eisen-Martin, and comedy from Nato Green. So again, welcome. I am talking to a black screen, but I'm assuming you're all out there. So first up is Monica Sok, who is a Cambodian-American poet and the daughter of refugees. She's the author of Nail, The Evening Hangs On, and teaches poetry as a Jones Lecturer at Stanford University. And tonight, we've asked each of our participants to provide a pandemic pro tip. And Monica's tip is give yourself permission to move slowly. And so without further ado, Monica.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying up late with me. I'm having some sake, so cheers. Gotta sip that a little bit if I'm gonna raise my glass. Okay, I know I have a very short time to read, and I'm so happy to be here with everyone. So thank you very much to the Rumpus, to Christine, and every other readers that you'll see next. This poem is called The Woman Who Was Small, Not Because the World Expanded. The elephants came out from the fields and carried me toward Chambak, toward a village doused in fires, so that in the pond fish had fried, and looking at that dead water was a woman I had seen running home each evening with a bucket in her hand. Always her speed was the hair that flew in my face, always her feet sounding of tanks which made dogs bark and flee, footprints deep as trenches in the grass. This is the woman who had shrunk so small when the planes came, nobody could ever find her. And since more planes, she stayed as small as a spoon, and the world seemed to enlarge though nothing had changed. And when she saw me, she hid, threw pebbles at my ankles until I bowed down and easily picked her up, folding her inside a banana leaf. She slept. She slept well. She who is my mother, sleeping off the world again, whose person I hold in my hand when she wants to be held. So I wrote this book everywhere. I wrote it in Siem Reap, in Phnom Penh, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I was born, in Oakland, but I also spent a lot of time in New York City. So I'm going to read this poem called Cruel Radiance. I take the R from 86th Street to teach poetry in Manhattan. My hand sweats on Cruel Radiance, the front cover, a photograph of a girl the Khmer Rouge executed, one of many children presumed counter-revolutionary enemies as the soiled descendants of such. My chest heaves. To everyone on the train, I do not say, all the sobbing inside of me, all of it you know now, but you don't know what I am called, Enekajun, traitor of my roots. Instead, I catch the N across the platform, continue reading about S21. We were not inside those prisons, they were. Our hells almost certainly are not theirs. A white girl with a streak of blue hair falls flat on her back. Her head a bowling ball close to my foot. Her head a bowling ball that rolls on the floor. I look up from reading cozy existential atmosphere, Adorno's words, and there a white girl on the ground, breathing, breathing, breathing. Someone call 911. Someone press the emergency button. Someone pull the girl up. Now she is sitting, telling someone she's on her way to 23rd Street as a train screeches to my stop on 8th. Doors open. I see how the distinction between victim and executioner becomes blurred. I want to cancel class. Because why? So I can solve about the killing fields and how Enekajun feels? I'd rather do that today. My head could be a bowling ball too. I could fall over from this too. I'll read this one more poem, which I really enjoy reading because it is about my experience of learning how to read. And thank you so much. ABC for refugees. Cherubi D, how does a man who doesn't read English well know that Cherubi Dam, those aren't really words, BD, but birds. Cherubi Dum, he stumbles, reading to me by the sliding glass door, Cherubi D, through which I watch my brother play in the dum-dum yard. Cherubi D, Cherubi Dum, like how my father says, fine then, leave. My mother shouts, stupid, dumb. We live in a small BD nest too, one hallway, two B-dum slam doors. Birds? What are birds? Thanks to my father, reading with me, I have more feathers. T-H-E, first word he ever taught me to pluck. It is a word used all the time. Chirrub, chirrub, beat-em. The mail, the mailbox, the school bus, the. He asks me to read the mail, not birds, mail. If you don't read this, you will turn into birds. And I read it to him the best I can. The end, a feather, two feathers, the end. Mother, mother, repeat after me. Cherubi-dee, cherubi-dum. We read together before bedtime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. It's riveted. I love the rhythm and the pictures you're creating. Next up is Ingrid Rojas Contreras, and she is the author of Fruit of the Drunken Tree, out from Doubleday in 2018, a silver medal winner in the first fiction from the California Book Awards, and a New York Times Editor's Choice. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, The Cut, The Believer, and elsewhere. And a new work of nonfiction, a family memoir about her grandfather, a curandero from Colombia, who it was said had the power to move clouds. It's coming from Doubleday in 2022, and I cannot wait. And Ingrid's pro tip is, this is intriguing, if you make a bet, always let the reward be breakfast in bed. And I'm going to ask you one question. How many times have you won this, Ingrid? Oh, do I have to mute? You're muted.
There you go. I mean, there's nothing better than being right and then waking up after you know that you've been right and then have breakfast brought to you. I win all the time. I've won that all the time.
Word.
Okay. So I'm drinking wine. Cheers. Thank you for being with us. I also have to take a sip. I'm going to read to you from the forthcoming memoir. The grave diggers wore face masks and gloves, yellow boots and royal blue jumpsuits. They would seem sinister, except for the fact that on their hands are thin, gauzy shower caps, which gives them more of a domestic look. One of them raises a gloved hand. He tells us they are ready to uncover the casket. But we have to stand back because of methane gas, except I don't move because how can I explain to him that this is essentially the first time I am meeting my grandfather, even if it is just his bones. My cousin Sergio argues, we have our faces covered. He is a veterinarian, so he has clout of some type. It's been 28 years. I speak loudly, but it comes out muffled through the face mask. I know it's been exactly 28 years because that's how old I am, and I am as old in life as Nono is in death. His body, dead in 1985, has been disintegrating at the same rate in which my body, born in 1984, has been growing. We are two at the edge of the known and the unknown. The men bend down and lower a yellow rope into the grave. They heave up a concrete slab and let it drop over the grass of a neighboring grave. Immediately, I am over Nono's, looking down, staring at the black earth. It is hard to tell anything apart. I spot the skull. I stare for long seconds, and finally I see, in the clumps of earth, white finger bones. Then everything snaps into place. The white finger bones are peeking out of a graying coat sleeve, and they are wrapping delicately around the stem of a turquoise cross. Here and there you can see the cloth of the pants emerging out from the dirt. The white finger bones holding the last movement of my grandfather's body feels like something I am not supposed to see. And I turn away and close my eyes. Tia Nancy is standing next to me. She tells her son Sergio the cross is bronze, and Sergio explains that it is blue now because it has oxidized. Notice all the things the cross has stained blue: Nono's chest, the coat sleeve, the earth. My mother is quiet too, but then I hear the sound of her camera shutter. Staring down into Nono's grave, I see pieces of a lilac ribbon. It's amazing to me the color has survived. The grave diggers say the corrosion is high and they have to pull Nono out part by part. One of them puts on a yellow butcher's apron and stays in the bottom of the grave, while the other two remain on top receiving parts. There is a long steel tray for the remains and the grass. The first things to go on the tray are small bones and more colored ribbons, but then small pieces of paper, which get carried to the tray along with fists of earth or cloth or matter. I had imagined I would be able to read those little pieces of papers, which are requests, letters, and prayers that people put in Nono's casket the day of his burial. Nono is a curandero, and in Colombia it is believed curanderos gain more power as they cross into the other world. So his funeral was a unique opportunity for the people to leave prayers to be fulfilled. I bend over the papers and see the miracles requested of my grandfather. They are unreadable. I stand and look down at the gravedigger crouching down in the grave instead. He's looking at nothing, it seems, but then he sweeps aside dirt and he pinches at 2 points. He pulls and a coat emerges. The man is careful to lift the pants too, to keep all the bones together. It is a logical, simple gesture, but I am shocked at how compressed Nono can be, carried inside a coat and pants draped over this man's arms. The man in the grave swings his arms up to the man above ground, and they transfer the suit from one pair of arms to the other, because the suit is not a suit filled with bones, but to us and to them, for this brief moment, a person. The man above ground releases the coat elongated on the tray, but the pants are loose and fold underneath. Nono is headless, just a blue linen suit he wore on his wedding day, dusted in decay. Then the skull is added, and as a finishing touch, the shoes. All the ingredients of humanity on a tray. After a while, Tia Nancy says, "How black the skull is." "It's normal," Sergio answers. "It's the humidity." Thank you.
And folks, that's coming out from Doubleday in 2022. So put that on your list. And thank you so much for sharing something in advance with us, Ingrid. Next up is Tongo Eisen-Martin. And Tongo is originally from San Francisco. He's a poet, movement worker, and educator. And his latest curriculum on extrajudicial killing of Black people, We Charge Genocide Again, has been used as an educational and organizing tool throughout the country. His book, titled Someone's Dead Already, was nominated for a California Book Award. And his latest, Heaven is All Goodbyes, was published by the City Lights Pocket Poet series, was shortlisted for the Griffin Poetry Prize, and won a California Book Award and an American Book Award. And Tongo's pro tip during the pandemic is meditation. Welcome, Tongo.
I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt tooth man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti in the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down the Christmas. The new bullets pray over the blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration, the waistband before the next protest poster. By the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It is only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill, a neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise, a new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder, the figment of village, a new noose to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. They bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tantric screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. The sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque peach plastic and boat action audiences. You know, the Medgar Evers second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondled news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums. Artless bleeding and the challenge of watching civilians think. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. You know, they let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in the arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war, what with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt, and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. I talk facing away from the dead. They replace me with the change in my pocket, a penny that's yet to be invented. They say you have to know how to cut a throat on the way to cutting the throat. After sleeping on a mattress made from 2 garbage bags of clothes, I became content with the small gestures of plantation fires, playing with couch ashes. I realized how weird the universe was. You know, it exists in so many places, so many random things that interrupt me while I'm trying to dream. Like your clay correspondence, Lord. To be transparent, I have 20 books next to a bullet like an old man giving advice at the beginning of a revolution. I've really done it, Lord. Explored the mumbles of my mind, explored what's naturally there, and I found no brainwashing. I found Africa, Lord. I have a future. It takes place in the diasporic South. I have morning possessions, modern militancy. Windows to the South. I'll walk on a missile for food. I guess you will not want flowers for a few years, Lord. Will I be tied face to face with the country I murdered? Merge with us, Lord. Our old metal versus new metal, or old metal versus a pool of meandering imperialist faces, a multiculturalism of sorts. You know that they replaced me with a comedian's chest cavity instead of a chest cavity held tight. It takes a violent middleman for me to talk to myself. Stories that travel through other people's stories. A song about a song, a hemisphere about a hemisphere. Stories that travel through a conquered poet. Hey, my mother remembers Africa, Lord. She killed on behalf of you, Lord. I wore a machete all winter and no one asked me what it meant. I read 1,000 books in front of the world. You know, what I do is fight poems and sleep through decadent San Francisco prayer circles, watch people play for post-working class associative services, or recreations of a governor's desk, you know, ruling class art of utility, playing find a sociopathic bureaucrat, a day some white people scare even easier. TV in a basket next to a ceramic baby, wearing ceramic armor, musket progeny fantasizing through the art of the poor. Their trendy latches locked before God, black art hunted down like a dog. They hand over my friends, Lord. Lord, I think I'm gonna die in a war. Unelected white people in my small house, like a blues song of no spiritual effect, a dollhouse, H-bomb, a pony show near dead bodies, apartheid weddings that go right, apartheid white people who give birth to mathematicians, the spiritual continuity of barracks and police stations, a chemical interpretation of a Sunday trip to church, church smells in their pockets, a river mistaken for a talking river. No autobiography outside of small personal victories of violence and drug use, made in the image of God trinkets, what white abolitionists confided in their children about. Chemical assurances that they will switch from black artist to white artist, black guy to white guy, black worker to white worker. You know, I think about you cautiously, Lord. In the same way I think about my childhood, Lord. Foxhole Friday nights, most of life is mute. A comedian points out a planter's field to a priest, king, sugar cane, king, cotton, king, revolutionary, the Bala Central, containing all modes of shallow introduction, introducing. An unlisted planter class speaking about fevers and balance sheets and reassuring the masses that we can figure out our fathers later. You know, a priest took my mother lightly, Lord. Stood in front of parishioners, re-raveling fantasies about black art. Priest reading confidently before I broke him and broke his parallel. You know, after the day, I've never been a poet before. Little brother watches his big brother's friends. They leave rifles on sheltered walls. They agree with me and call it literature. It's a simple matter, this revolution thing. To really lie to no one. To keep nothing godlike. To write a poem for God. All right, begin.
That is one clap, but you're hearing a whole room. I always enjoy hearing Tongo read. It's just, I wish I could read like Tongo. That should be on a t-shirt. I wish I could read like Tongo. And so thank you so much. And we're going to segue now into some laughter. This is a really hard time for many of us, most of us, I'm going to say all of us, where, you know, it's hard to slow down. It's hard to really take a moment. It's really hard to check in with your feelings. And it's really hard to find an outlet too for all these feelings because we're stuck at home. And at the Rumpus, we're just so happy to provide you with this diverse reading and to close with some laughter. And it's thoughtful laughter because it's Nato Green, who traditionally reads with us every year. So San Francisco native Nato Green is the country's only semi-functional hybrid of comedian, writer, and union organizer. Nato Green released his second comedy album, The Whiteness Album, on Blonde Medicine Records, and it's great, everybody, and appeared in the film Sorry to Bother You. Nato has also been a union organizer for over 20 years. Thank you, and I'm a beneficiary of that. Working as an organizer, union rep, and negotiator with UFCW, ILWU, CNA, SEIU Local 1021, and founding Young Workers United. The Episcopal Archbishop once called him the Antichrist. And NATO's pandemic pro tip is whiskey. And I toast to that with my cider, which has like this beautiful art on it. And without further ado, Nato Green.
Hey everybody! So I'm breaking from my pro tip because instead of drinking whiskey right now, I have Cuban rum, which I keep around the house from having lived in Cuba. So jokes. Let's see about some comedy. Let's see if we can make it happen.
We're all gonna unmute, and we're gonna all unmute here. Let me give us a moment.
Okay, and then I will get real time success or failure every 20 seconds from Ingrid, Monica, and Tongo and Christine. And so my fate is in your hands. So I have 12-year-old twins, and they're back at school, and I'm on the mission to raise the most insufferable, wokest white kids of all time, which is low bar. And my kids go to public school, and so they've been duly educated to take their place in the class system. California public schools have adopted a curriculum focused on literacy, maths, and downward mobility. So my kids are focused as 7th graders on learning how to drive Uber and upsell from black coffee to a venti latte at Starbucks. And the key to that is eye contact and nodding. So like a lot of middle-class families, We're supplementing with home enrichment, and to be fully on brand for Nato Green, here's what we've actually been covering. This is 100% true with our children. Inquiry into the work of Alan Turing, which brings together questions of homophobia, math, technological innovation and its relation to capitalism, methods of warfare and espionage. Also, in the event that Trump steals the election again, we're learning how to overthrow the government, and we're using as a guide the Minard map that depicted Napoleon's Russia campaign of 1812. So my kids can work out mathematically how many people would need to set out from San Francisco to successfully lay siege to Washington, D.C. and topple the Trump regime, taking into account, of course, the need to maintain supply chains, death along the way, desertions, Wi-Fi, road rash, calluses, chub rubs, sunburns, diarrhea, true love, gout, dengue fever, weather, fisting, marauding Nazis, and the miles necessary to traverse the country. They're also learning how to make a proper bourbon old-fashioned using a giant ice cube, muddling the orange slice, which bitters to use, and that daddy likes to be able to hold out his hand without looking up at 5:45 on the dot and have a drink appear in his hand. I realize, by the way, having done some Zoom things, that I feel like the Zoom format is slightly anti-Semitic because as a Jew, I communicate with my hands and I need a separate screen for my hands because otherwise they're way up here and it doesn't look right. Anyway, so what else is going on? Oh, so this year, big year, it was very exciting. WAP came out, Wet Ass Pussy, and great song, viewed 80 million times in the first week. A lot of sex positivity. My favorite thing about it was Ben Shapiro, the right-wing commentator, who went on Twitter and said, a vagina so wet that it requires a bucket and a mop to clean up. My doctor wife says that this is definitely a sign of bacterial vaginosis or a yeast infection, and they should have that looked at. So that is to say that the right wing have so much difficulty imagining women enjoying their own sexuality and the possibility that they might have the normal physiological reaction to being aroused is that they think is a good idea to win the culture war, to say publicly, no, this is actually false. Vaginas don't get wet unless they're broken. And that's exciting. We're also, it's getting weird. So people keep talking about the bingo card. Like I didn't have that on my 2020 bingo card. What is this fucked up, horrific bingo game people are playing? Like, oh yeah, I got a bingo card of people dying from getting COVID at COVID parties, and a guy who grew a synthetic penis on his elbow, and Kanye West on the ballot in Ohio as a spoiler for Joe Biden, and federal agents disappearing protesters from the streets of Portland, Oregon. I got bingo. Yay. What did I win? Oh, a horrific death on a ventilator by myself. That's cool.
Oh my God.
So, and Trump can only win the election at this point by cheating. And like the Republicans are making it so, I'm about to date myself and reveal my age, but Republicans are making it so hard for people to vote that voting is going to be like getting yourself to a rave in 1991, which is like, you have to like go to find a payphone and page a guy and go to another corner and give a guy a cigarette. And then you have to like drink a can of Jolt Cola, even though the company went bankrupt in 2009, and you have to get a leotard and corduroy overalls and Doc Martens, and then you have to drive your Toyota Cressida 35 miles down a dirt road and like find a polling place on a beach, and you're not allowed to vote until it's dawn and you've taken ecstasy. Like that's how Republicans are trying to make us have to vote. So I did watch the Democratic convention, which had all the production value of a high school student film project doing an infomercial of a high fiber diet. It was a greatest hits of political cliches. They said, this is about unity versus division. The moment has come to deal with systemic racism, battle for the soul. Most cops are good. Look at these old ass white people, shared values, children's future, work with both sides. My favorite thing about the Democratic convention was the pre-taped speech by John Kasich, the former Republican governor of Ohio, who, in a real demonstration of his mastery of metaphor, gave a speech about how America was standing at a crossroads while standing at a literal crossroads. He was filmed at an actual crossroads, and I looked it up. I was like, where is this crossroads? And the crossroads that John Kasich was at was outside of his own house, and in the suburbs of Ohio, and it was a crossroads where the road on the right went to an $800,000 house, and the road on the left went to an $850,000 house. And that tells you everything you need to know about Democrats and Republicans. So finally, my favorite moment of the year was the resurgent movement for Black Lives, the people marching in the streets over the horrific police murder of Black people across the country, and seeing people rise up for that. And my single favorite moment of the year was when people burned down the police station in Minneapolis. And here's why. When that happened, there was a moment where Trump was polling at 42%, Joe Biden was polling at 46%, and burning down the police station in Minneapolis was polling at 54%. Burning down a police station is more popular than either candidate for president. And that raises the obvious question, if 54% of Americans supported burning down the police station, what did the other 46% think? 12% of them thought don't burn down the police station at all. 23% said, why only burn down one police station, burn them all down. 5% said stack all the police stations on top of each other and then tip them over. And then 6% said, fuck those people, I wanted to be the one to burn down the police station. So finally, there's been a big debate about, like, people have been toppling statues of murderers and slavers, and I love that. I think it's very exciting. And some people are debating, like, replacing them with statues of other people, like indigenous leaders and civil rights leaders and things like that. And I am not for that. I think we should leave the broken base of the statues as they were. And here's why. Someday, if civilization survives, I want to be able to bring my grandchildren around and have them say, Grandpa, why is it that in front of every government building, there's a pile of broken rocks? And I want to say, there was another civilization here of racist, stupid, hateful murderers. They were here when we arrived, and this is all that's left of their civilization, is this pile of rocks. And then I get to teach them about the word plinth, which is an important word for children to learn. Thank you very much. Rise up, everybody.
Yay.
And thank you so much. We have Nato with us every year, and it is always a pleasure to end our reading with laughter and a new perspective on things. Again, thank you to all our readers for joining us. Thank you out there for joining us. I can't actually see you. This is every year I always take a picture of the audience, and I'm unable to, but virtually, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you to all our readers. Look them all up, read their work, buy their work, support the Rumpus, check out therumpus.net, and support Lit Crawl. Thank you so much. And I don't know what happens next. Heather?